press that when you're learning and you're, say you're a new engineer out of college, it's, always have many questions
It's what we call a hot mic.
There it is. So we're supposed to do some, and cover that.
An engineering hot mic.
It's always so much easier to discuss these issues, engineering and technical issues in person. Trying to set up a Zoom meeting with your boss all the time.
Especially engineering, like in your profession, it's ideal.
This is not for the record. Do not use this. Okay, great. We're here tonight. This is the planning board meeting of May 20th. We have a quorum, and is there a motion to open the meeting?
Motion?
Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I think we're expecting one other to join us. When she does, I think it's Jennifer, so she'll be working as a full member this evening when she shows up. Okay, our first item tonight is 11 Kittle Road LLC, aka the Kittle House, 11 Kittle Road. This is an application for a site development plan approval, tree removal permit, and steep slopes permit for renovations.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, staff. For the record, Brad Schwartz from Zarin Steinmetz representing the applicant. Christy Crace, one of the new owners, is with us tonight. Her husband, Scott Son Jackson, on Zoom. They were the ones just conversing with Bob before the meeting. And our whole consulting team is here as well. So as you remember from last time, this whole application is about making improvements to Kittle House to modernize it and make it safer for generations to come. We submitted a package on April 14th that we believe responded to all of the prior comments. Ken and Rob will take your board through those. We've reviewed the comments that were issued in advance of tonight's meeting, and we're confident that we'll be able to respond to all of those comments that were just received. So we're hopeful that by the end of tonight, your board will be ready to advance this to public hearing and hopefully approvals. We're certainly wanting to begin this work as soon as possible, and we could get into some of that construction timeframes with you all during our presentation. So I'll turn it to Ken to walk you through our submittal.
Okay, great.
Good evening, Ken Anderson, Granoff Architects, how are you? I think Jeff Scher needs to be promoted to presenter. I don't know who does that.
CJ? For Freedom, can you put, I'm sorry, what is your name again?
Jeff Scher.
Jeff Scher, can he
Gotcha, he raised his
be able to share? Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Can I share?
Okay.
Would you like to speak to them? You can hear it. Just share screen.
Share screen. I assume we'll see it come up.
Yeah.
I didn't know if he should come up here.
Probably here for the money.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be talking, he's just navigating.
I just don't have the option to share screen.
Still no option? Sorry.
Freedom? Can he share his screen?
I'm trying to communicate with him right now.
Okay.
Sorry.
Talk about the Knicks.
Yeah.
That's good. I was gonna say, this is always delays our construction.
Yeah. I mean, just to summarize from memory everything, but we were able to address all the board comments before. There were a few that were big ones, and I think one of them was the tree removal in the one corner of the property because we were trying to make more parking. So what we did is we were able to save 3 trees that were documented and actually one other tree that wasn't documented. So 4 trees in total, which were significant, by just eliminating a few spots and making our retaining wall in that corner where the trees were gonna be eliminated in a different location. I will show you that graphically
Right,
when it
and
comes.
if you could show us the three trees, you know.
Yeah,
the-
sure.
The precise ones that were saved.
There were other trees that towards sort of the downhill part of the property, towards where the garbage cans are and the fire access road are, that we were also asked to see if we can save. It was very difficult to save those. We needed to move the fire access road. If you can just highlight the dotted line, which is the existing way, we needed to move it to make it more fire access friendly. And it created grading such that we had to remove, you could see the X's of the trees we had to move.
Is that what the American sycamore was that was
Yes,
identified in the memo?
yes, that was a good memory, Greg. Again, we tried multiple different options with grading and a wall, and it just didn't work. But if you go to the upper left in that red revision, what were the three trees, Jeff? They were of significant caliper, just
50 inches, 36 inch, and another
a 50-inch, a 36-inch, and
There was a 12 and another.
yeah, there was a
The
three.
50-inch, I think, was the one that we all were.
Correct, so in total, we were saving about 100 inches of caliper tree. So we did slightly reduce our tree replacement plan.
So what's going on up here in this area? Right now, as I understand it, as I recall, you have a wall there and there's parallel parking. So I think you're cutting into the hill, right, to
We're
expand
cutting into the hill, if you
to the red line?
no, see on the top, left to right, you see where his
Okay,
that area there is all new parking, which is front loaded. There's currently no parking there.
right.
So if you recall, as part of the improvements of the of this arrival sequence, we are eliminating the parking along the driveway access. So now that's gonna be planted nicely with trees, and parking court is getting a little smaller, which is, it's very overlarge as it is now. We're adding trees around the parking court and paving, and to make up for that, we're adding those spaces left to right where the retaining wall is.
But above where you're putting this in, it seemed to me, I know you have a grading plan as well, but it seems to me that you were grading that area or
I think
regrading it.
In
And I think that's what's
conjunction,
causing the
well,
loss
there
of
was,
any trees up here.
yes, it was a combination of grading and the retaining wall, which there still is grading and a retaining wall, but because we didn't cut in so much and we eliminated some spots, now it's able to be saved.
Do you have the opportunity just to show what you had last time? Do you have that here?
Yes.
Just so we can
Yes.
see the, so
Correct.
I think you can
I
see the
think
change.
If you back out of that folder, there's it says previous presentation. If you open it.
No, those trees are being.
There's only three things. I think there's still others that didn't paint color.
Okay,
So, you know, okay.
let's take a look.
So see that area there? You can see how the trees, the parking cut in closer to that corner, if you will.
So are these trees here to be saved?
Those are new trees, I think.
New trees, okay.
You see the X's? That tree, and that tree, those are the ones we're saving now.
Okay. And those are the three that were
Yes.
marked in the.
And then there was one undocumented, I can't remember where
Yeah,
that
it
was.
was, I think it was in a different area.
Oh, was it oh, I see, it was a different area.
It was marked incorrectly, 2
Yeah,
inches,
so
it should have been 12.
these were the bulk of the caliper
Mhm.
that we were saving, the 53, the 35 and 12.
And so the way we're saving those is you're going to use a wall instead of grading it up.
We are still gonna use a wall, but we got rid of some spots,
Oh, I see.
so
Yeah, they got rid of, it looks like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you can see it better here. If there was an overlay, those things
Yep.
would come together
yeah,
more up top.
yes. So that was a significant sort of preservation of the trees that exist and to keep the existing character of that wooded area between Kittle Road and existing parking. And we feel moving the parking that's along the driveway access is a nice thing as well for neighbors because of the less disturbance of them. I should also add in advance of us hoping to get to a public hearing. We did invite, how many of the neighbors in the?
70?
We invited, well, I think you invited,
that's who showed
you
up. We
invited
invited everybody.
about 100 of the HOA of the neighborhood. And 70 showed up, and we did a similar presentation to them, what we're doing. It was all received very well, very positive, they were thankful, they were, you know, they were very happy that the Kittle House is gonna remain relatively intact the way it is. So they were very supportive of it. And we did show them about the number of replacement trees we were doing and how we're removing some of the parking from the driveway access and adding safer parking, you know, around the building. So in doing that, now our parking is, the original approval from 1997 was 164. But of that 164, there was, I don't wanna say land bank, but there was like dashed in parking of 12 spaces that said build out if you need it. So in reality, they had 152 spots. We're at currently 149, which is 118 are paved and 93 are sort of the grass overflow, which is the lower level.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you a question about that.
Sure.
When I was looking at the drawing, some is asphalt, some is crushed stone, and some is grass. I understand the grass.
Yes.
I understand the asphalt. Is the crushed stone there because you need pervious, or is the crushed stone there just because it's a different material? What's the reasoning for that not being grass or that not being asphalt?
It was always historically crushed stone in that area. I don't know if you can highlight the lowest area
Yeah,
there.
right down
Yeah,
there,
right
yep.
down there. And that was always an overflow parking area for.
And it's always been crushed stone.
It has always been crushed
Okay.
stone. I think it's been pulverized to the point now where it's like more gray dirt. But yeah, we intend to improve
And
it
you're
with
not
crushed.
considering asphalt there?
No, we don't want to. It's a little close to the septic system and we don't wanna sort of impinge upon that
Gotcha.
as it exists.
Is there any chance that could go to the grass to the right? Or it would have too much wear and tear?
What can go?
The crushed stone gravel area, where you
No, we can't- we
where you
can't-
have the grass parking on the right, if that's all, is that overflow too, or does that really get used?
That gets used rarely, but on a large event, it may get used, and that's grass.
More valet.
It's more valet.
I mean, is there any benefit to the whole site if that was grass instead of crushed stone?
The whole lower level?
The whole, yeah, just the bottom part, that area down below, you know, just curiosity, you know, for maintenance, for pervies,
I don't- I'll defer to James or sorry, Jeff.
Yeah, no worries. I know it's
Jeff
out of
shares
left
our
field.
landscape architect.
Hey, how's it going? Jeff Scherer, landscape architect. That area is a little bit shady, or more shady because it's in the woods area or wooded area set in more, so it doesn't get as much sun as the area that we're proposing the lawn.
Okay,
So it may just get muddy and
Get muddy.
difficult to wear and tear, so
Fair enough.
gravel's easier.
But the grass area, is that not the primary area for the valet parking? Because those are the narrow parking spots that are the, was it the 9x18 or something?
Yeah.
As opposed to the others that are 9x20 and.
Yeah,
So it seems to me that, and actually when I've been there, that's where the valet parking goes, so that the other parking is available to the rest of us, so we can knock into each other's cars. And but the valet was always down below. So it seems to me that in fact the statement is that that will be used a lot. Because whenever you valet, you're gonna have it on weekends, right?
Yeah.
Friday, Saturday and Sundays and events?
Yeah, no, but we have a big party, like we have a wedding, a la carte, they never use it. We have a la carte only if we have a wedding.
I think the down below is more for use of restaurant workers and
This here,
staff.
down here?
the gravel.
The
And
gravel
only-
area.
Only honestly a handful of restaurant employees because most of the employees, there's a bus drop off right
Okay.
on
117.
117, right across from Kill Road. Most people come that way or they Uber to work. A lot of the workers don't have cars, so I don't know if you can speak to that, John, about how many employee cars come.
Talking about almost like 15.
Yeah.
Yep, can you identify yourself for Felicia? Oh, sorry.
I'm John Gindy, I'm the general manager of Kittle House.
Okay, great.
So basically, we have almost 35 people employees, but most of them don't have a car, they use a car service. So we talk about 15 parking spots, they always park in the third level, which one you talk about.
Okay. Great.
And also during the day, when the day-to-day office employees are there, a lot of times they're not there during the event, so that there's an overlap where it's not needed as much. And honestly, the Kittle House has existed for a very long time with 93 spots that have been improved, and it's worked fine without problem. And I think that was it for the major changes that we did. Maybe Rob from JMC can speak about the engineering comments and what they changed.
I think, especially before council has to leave, I think we should, I know there was one working issue out there regarding the tree application.
Oh, I'm sorry,
And the timeliness of that, and whether it's possible. So perhaps, John, you could speak to it and then see where we are on that.
Can I address something
Sure.
first too?
Sure.
So I did speak to Dennis on this because even though it's another tree application, I think when we first applied for the tree removal is when they first purchased the property. A lot of things were in disrepair. Nothing was ever managed in the wooded areas or perimeters of the property. Things were dangerous. Trees were leaning over. There's dead trees everywhere. So their immediate concern was for safety. So we applied for a permit only because, you know, that's what the protocol is. Dennis went out, many of the trees or all of the trees didn't require a replacement because they were in either dead, dying, or diseased. So we did notice the neighbors for that, and then we would love to do all this other tree removal in July and August. The Craces have planned to close during July and August 100%, which is a big decision because, you know, they have a staff, they have events, they have revenue, money-making opportunities that they're losing out on. And it's not like they can just push that or move that. It's something that's already made a decision on. And so we would love to cut those trees during that time frame. I know there is this year calendar event, so I think that the spirit of that calendar year rule was to avoid people, you know, applying 20 times for a single tree to not have to notice the neighbors, where we have noticed the neighbors already on all the aspects of what we were doing. So if we could consider it like phase 1 and a phase 2 of what we've done, we've noticed them initially, we've obviously noticed them again for this other permit, so that was our hope. I don't know if we can get support from you, but we would love to have your support on that.
I think there's some fair points in that, in terms of the notice and in terms of the nature of the original work that was done. And you know, I mean, you don't want to punish somebody for clearing up dangerous trees.
Mhm.
You know, I think that's a fair application under the code, because, you know, whether the dangerous trees are before or after the permit's issued, that work should be done immediately.
Yeah, no, thank you, I agree.
And I think the board would support, I hope the board would support this as sort of like a continuing application, and that we've got field changes that we've made in the field and changes that we see once we clear some of this stuff out. So it's really a continuum of the same sort of work, so I don't think it really will be a hurdle that we can just consider this to be an ongoing application from last October, just ongoing and continuing, and then we can just consider it to be a worst case scenario field change that Dennis has observed with the applicant and said we can make these changes and move forward.
Okay, thank you, thank
Just
you
a
very much.
question, if this applicant had come in 6 months beyond that 1 year, this would be a no issue?
Correct.
Okay.
But
No, I just wanna check.
Yeah, the fear is that, you know, then he comes back in 3 months, he says, you know, I have just one tree in the back corner, and, you know, let me just, it goes into Dennis of the town. And you don't wanna have this board consider the application as a whole, and then have people nibbling at the edges.
I hear you.
And again, we have built in the code, we have certain provisions in there that you can do certain things every year. You can take down certain trees without having to get an application within a 12-month period. So it's the same sort of thing, it's really, I think it's in there to prevent people from playing games.
Right.
And I don't think that's the case here. And I would support working with the applicant and calling it a field change or whatever we wanna do, just a continuing application and not a problem. So does that sound okay?
Sounds good to me.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Rob Aiello. I'm a principal and an engineer with JMC. So our last submission to your board included additional technical data. It included our stormwater pollution prevention plan, it included the grading and utilities plans, and it also included a narrative and an overview of the existing septic system that currently serves the property and will continue to serve the property going forward. So with regard to stormwater management, just a brief overview, as we do have an increase in impervious area, we are proposing two separate stormwater management systems, one on the left side of the building and one on the right. They're underground systems and they're the grayish solar panel looking boxes that are on the plan, but they are under the ground. And the one on the left is intended for stormwater infiltration. And the one on the right is actually provided for detention. So in our SWIP, we went through all the calculations and we also received the town engineer's memorandum yesterday. Since we received it, there were a number of comments within it, but we've gone through each and every one of them. We're able to address them. We've redone the calculations, which we will resubmit to the board. And the upshot of it is that the system on the left increases by about 50%, and it's still within the existing parking area. Basically, we had a deeper system, and we made it more shallow and spread it out based on some of the newer stormwater requirements that were just enacted in the new general permit and stormwater manual. With regard to, so we'll revise our SWIP and provide that information, but that's really, in essence, the only physical change to the site plan. With regard to the septic system, there are 3 grease traps located in the upper right-hand corner of the building. There are 2 septic tanks as you come down along the bottom right-hand of the building. And then the fields are in the meadow area south of the parking area that we were just discussing. So all of the components remain as they currently are. As you may recall, there's actually a reduction in the seats as a consequence of the proposed improvements. As we have been further coordinating with some of the interior building renovations, the 3 grease traps, which total 2,500 gallons, will be replaced by 2 new ones, totaling 5,000 gallons for additional treatment. And really that was necessitated by some inverts, basically the elevations we needed to hit coming out of the building based on work happening inside the building. So that's an overview of the technical aspects that's been provided. In addition, we added an erosion control plan, and we also are showing the new water services coming in on the top of the page to serve the building. There's a fire service and a domestic service and a heated enclosure above grade, which will be off of Kittle Road, and that's that box that's right there.
Are the grease traps set up so that they prevent the grease from going into the septic area? Is that the whole, what their function is?
Correct. When you have a restaurant septic system, you want all the kitchen waste to go into the grease traps, and then all the non-kitchen waste go directly to the septic tanks, but it's providing initial treatment to keep the grease from going into the fields.
Right.
It gets pumped out.
Right, so it gets pumped out.
Quite
also.
frequently,
Yeah.
yes,
It stinks.
Yes,
it does.
yes. Okay. There was something in the narrative about a broken pipe leading to one of the fields. So
Correct.
It seems to me that that might have been something that resulted from use of the parking area that's just above. Would you think that that could have been the reason?
It's possible, yeah, the system is constantly reviewed and maintained, and these are things that just happen as a matter of course in the wear and tear of the system. And it's great that the Graces have been on top of it as much as they have been. They've really made a lot of improvements to the nuts and bolts of the system since they've taken over the property.
would the applicant be willing to share those reports when you guys do your work so that the town gets these reports, Jeff would get it, Jeff's department would get it. And we've done this before on other septic areas that are problematic or where, not really problematic, but delicate.
Sure,
In a delicate
sure.
area.
Sensitive.
It's
Sensitive.
every restaurant in
That-
Westchester County
sensitive.
that's on a septic system.
Yeah. I mean, you're doing those reports anyway, it seems to us, internally, but if you could share those just so that we have documents inside, making sure that these things are being done.
Sure, that could be done. And actually, there were a couple in our narrative and some of the appendices. What happens is you go through a repair
Yep.
permit process with the county, but we can certainly provide a copy to the town.
So my recollection was that you do that every 6 months or so?
Well, there's ongoing pumping of the tanks that happen on a more regular basis. Then there is periodic inspection of the system just to make sure that things are operating properly. The pipe repairs that you were mentioning are more under the periodic checkups.
Right.
But the more routine pumping of the grease traps and the septic tanks happen on a more routine basis.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Rob?
Yeah.
To that point, Jackson might be able to opine, when you took over, I think one or two of the tanks wasn't being worked, one part.
Okay. Okay. What we were just discussing was, Jackson Crace has been very involved in the understanding how the septic system works and making sure that it's properly maintained. And Jackson is on the Zoom call, but there were some tanks that actually weren't working properly. So that was also rectified.
Was that
since they were-
the first set that you've now taken offline?
Yeah, I'm not, to be honest, I'm not sure which set of tanks it was. I just
Jackson will do.
Jackson is on the line if you'd like to speak with him, but I'm not sure. You know if it's the grease traps or the septic tanks?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think it was the grease traps.
No, it's definitely the septic.
Oh, it's the septic
There was
tanks.
one, there were 3 septic areas and one's offline. And
Yeah.
Oh, well, no, so there's, oh, you're talking about the fields.
No,
Yeah, it was-
it was
It was
the tanks, the cover was off the tank, they couldn't get to the cover on the tank.
Okay, right. So the ones that you were just talking about, the 2 that are online and one that's offline, those are the fields.
Right.
What we're referring to are the septic tanks, which had an issue with the access cover, which you need to have operating properly in order to properly maintain the system.
Right. Okay.
So there's been a lot of attention and care provided by the Grace family.
Is the one system that's offline, is it available in the future for emergencies or when something else happens? Or has the county closed it down or you guys just closed it down for yourselves?
No, actually, that was done in 2010. It was another engineer who actually was dealing with an issue that was happening at the time. So what they did was they took that portion of the system out of commission to allow time for it to recover.
Right.
But since it has been out of service for so long, it would be available if needed in the future.
Okay.
When you build a septic system,
Right.
you have your expansion area. So this is like having an expansion area
Right.
that you can rotate.
Yeah, it's like a built-in expansion area that you've already got.
Yep.
Well, okay. Anything else?
That was it.
Okay.
And on the fields at the bottom of the page, are those existing fields in the wetland buffer?
They're existing fields. Actually, they're existing galleys. They're the concrete
They're the galleys, okay.
4x4 galleys, yes.
And
those
they'll
have
be
been-
operational?
They are currently
They are,
operational,
okay.
yes. Yeah, they're serving the property right now. The only change we're making, they're upgrading the grease traps.
Gotcha.
I think there was something in the hate to emphasize all the septic stuff here, but there was one mention in there, I forget which system, when you had a problem that clay was put in to protect the wetlands and the buffer downstream so that there was a clay barrier that was installed. Was that on the number 1 system that's now offline or was it on 2 or 3?
It's on the 2 and 3, and what was done is you put clay
Right.
on the downhill side, so the sewage doesn't seep out through the
Right.
slope, it actually has more opportunity to go into the ground.
So it's on the 2 and 3 that are operating?
Correct.
Okay, great. Can we mark that on the site plan so that we have that? Because I know it's just written here in
the narrative,
the
right.
narrative.
Sure.
But we don't know whether that's there for number one, probably not. It was taken off and you put 2 and 3 into Seringas.
Because number one is further up.
Okay,
Thank you.
good, thank you. Anyone else?
That completes our presentation.
Okay. Okay, good, we'll go to staff comments. Sabrina, you had some comments and questions?
Good evening, board. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I only have a couple comments, and I think we did a lot of talking today with the applicant and among staff. My memo on page 2 just clarifies that this is a type 2 action. My second comment is in regards to building coverage. This is a pre-existing non-conforming use in a residential district. The building itself is within the maximum building coverage limits, which is good news because it doesn't seem out of character to any of the houses in the neighborhood. The development coverage, while there is development coverage associated with this zone is associated with residential uses, it really doesn't cover coverage for a use such as this. So the applicant did provide a coverage calculation for development coverage, which is greater than what we would expect in a residential neighborhood. It's a difference of 7,589 square feet. I don't think their total development coverage, I think it's important that the special permit and this approval reflect what that development coverage is, so that in several years from now, if they come back, we can keep track of the development coverage and make sure that it's consistent with what we're approving today. I did talk about in my memo that I'm going to the zoning board of appeals, but after much discussion with the building inspector and internally, because it is a pre-existing non-conforming use in a residential district, we don't think that they need to go to the zoning board and apply that residential coverage standard. But we do want to keep track of it moving forward. I think my largest comment really relates to the parking calculations, and I understand that they've been functioning with limited parking and it's been working and they have the valet, and I think that that's great, but we need to be able to prove it out. And right now there's some inconsistencies between the schematics on the plan, I think it's L101, and the tables and the charts. So I just want to be able to add 1 + 1 = 2 and make sure that the parking is confirmed and that the analysis for the parking is confirmed. The remaining of my comments 5, 6, and 7, really and 8 really relate to adding notes to that site plan. So thank you for addressing the notes in your narrative and in the communications that I received back and to review. They're all there, but we really need to put them on the site plan so that they exist in perpetuity once this approval is put in place. And then my comment 9 is really responses to the board's comments from last meeting, and the applicant has addressed all of that. That's all I have today. And then I did say that I would have no objection to the planning board sending this to public hearing if you so choose.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, absolutely.
So Sabrina, on
Yeah.
item 3, I just for my own clarification, so the existing coverage right now is about 56,000 feet?
Yep.
And you're saying it's a difference of about 7,600, what's the difference? What's the other number that we're making the difference of or from?
The maximum allowable.
Okay, so the maximum allowable is about 47 and change?
Correct.
Gotcha, thanks.
Okay. One thing that's mentioned and Sabrina's talked about maybe in point number 7.
Lighting.
We don't, lighting, we asked for a lighting plan and we still don't have a lighting plan. So
There was a
It
lighting,
was in the first
the
set.
first submission, there was a lighting.
I don't think so, cause well, maybe, it could be, I know we asked for it, but
Maybe not photometrics.
that's,
I think lighting, there was a statement on lighting, the lighting was identified and it was said to be replacement in kind, but we still need some
yeah, we wanna make sure that
Yes,
obviously
that
there's no spillage,
Yeah.
or as much as possible eliminated. And then this board is always concerned about lumens and Kelvin
Yes, yes.
and you know, what we wanna use. And so that's important, and of course, all the downward lighting, all these things that we all talk about. But I don't think we have a plan that shows us where the lights are, how they're going to be displayed, and of course, hours of lighting. I think Sabrina mentions that in point number 7, hours of lighting, et cetera. But we don't have a lighting plan, and that's
Yeah.
critically important.
I apologize, this was the lighting plan, but it's, we're mostly replacing all the overhead lighting with path lights and sconces on the building. What we don't have, and you're correct, are the photometrics supporting that, but it's all much less than what's existing there now.
Okay.
So
But
we
we have
will,
to see that with the
it
plan.
will be no problem to get you.
Yeah, and I think you know, the stuff on the side of the building is probably not an issue. What it really comes down to is making sure that we have good, safe lighting,
Yes,
but adequate and not spillage for the
Yes.
parking area.
of course.
Let me just point out, headlights also for parking, just, I know you guys have fences up, if you can just show us, you know, what kind of fences you have, just, again, we wanna make sure headlights are not pointing into neighbors' houses, things like that.
Yeah. I think honestly, the majority of the parking is parked into either
Yeah,
a
no,
graded hill or a
On the,
fence.
on the south side it is, on the north side, you're up high, so you're gonna be,
Yes,
and there's trees over there,
there's
but
trees over
I
there.
know there's, you have a fence there, but, you know, if we could have some detail on the fence, just to make sure
Sure.
that you do slats or however, whatever kind of fence,
Okay,
just make sure
yeah,
it's
we can
not, you
speak
know.
of that.
I thought I saw something in there with like different colors for the fence treatment, which all seem to be shades of gray, which was fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, very good, that's a very good point.
Okay, no, we-
Again, because this is you know, a residential area, we wanna make sure that we have as little impact as possible.
of course,
Yeah, they are.
yeah,
Solid fence.
solid fence, yeah.
So those will be on the north side?
Those will be along, is that north? Sorry. Yes.
Yeah.
Landscape guys just never know direction, do they?
Yes, north side,
And did
correct.
that detail say wooden or PVC?
Wood.
Wood? Okay, thanks.
Great,
Sorry to interject.
okay, no problem. Dennis, you had some thoughts, comments?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Comment 1, done. Comment 2, I just had a question, cause I was looking at sheet L200, which is your tree removal plan. So I just need clarification, as I may have shortchanged you in terms of credit for remaining trees, cause you guys show one of those 3 big trees is number 2959, which was one of the 34-inch silver maples. On that plan, it has an X through it, but then I noticed when you were sharing some of the others, it seems to still have a silhouette remain, so in moment, if I can get a yay or a nay, it basically would then either negate some of the follow-up that I had with respect to some of the numerics with the replacement and the canopy, because obviously if you're not removing that 34-inch tree, then you would need to technically replace less trees. So that's the only one that confused me, because I think it has an X through it on your removal plan, but you guys were making, I thought, reference to the potentially saving it.
Sorry, we're trying to show you, but.
Okay, no, that's fine.
Ran out of power
What
on
number,
our
Dennis?
laptop.
He can pull a chair.
Number 2959, it's a 34-inch silver maple. It's one of there were the 3 big ones that were over in that corner where you're,
I think that's one we were gonna save, but.
2959 we're removing.
Saved. Oh, it's removed?
Yeah, I think
well, it depends on what sheet you're looking at. So
2952.
this is now your time. If you're gonna remove it, that's fine. If you're gonna keep it, that's fine, but
I think 2952 is the one they saved.
yep, that one I have is remain. I also have 2949, which is a 50-incher to remain.
Yep.
it just seemed like, I just picked it up now, some of the other plans seem to keep 2959, but the tree removal plan shows an X through it, so I just
That
wanted to
one's
let
gonna
that
be
know.
removed
The tree
for
removal's
the
accurate.
grading.
Right, that's what I thought, okay. So then everything else seems to be relevant then as I go through. So that basically represented the area where there was gonna be, you know, a dendrological savings. Everything else is pretty much consistent with the prior submission. So when I get then to the tree replacement and landscaping plan, I just wanted to point out sort of our method of calculation that, you know, rising up in terms of caliper that you're gonna, you know, purchase as a replacement doesn't necessarily equate to the caliper replacement required. We always go by number of trees. So for us, that 2.5 inch is just a consistent factor, which we divide into what the replacement inches are. So that's why your calculations were going more off of caliper, because you were going with larger diameter or larger caliper trees. But for us, it goes by number of trees, so that's why I just pointed that out. But again, I took the liberty of just inserting a couple of other numbers with respect to the shrubs and the provision in 121-6I with the equivalence based on 8 shrubs to a tree. So it, you know, still appears that you guys are meeting the number totals. The only tweak that I pointed out was it just seems like you fell just a couple trees short of trying to get to 50% of canopy trees. I think it was 3 trees short. And again, just reading the code, that didn't have like a caveat of latitude in terms of, you know, where, like for example, when it comes to like invasive species, the approving authority has, you know, basically the discretion to say, well, you know, you don't need to replace that tree because it's a non-native invasive species, and that is in the code. This didn't have any writing, so this would be, if you could just do a little tweak and, you know, come up with 3 more canopy trees or come up with 3 less understory trees, I guess it would, the numbers would all work out in accordance with 121-6. And my only other comment under that was just, I know I mentioned this last time, just whatever, I know you're gonna use something with respect to herbivory protection, but just include that on the plan, because it certainly is a lot of plantings. I know the owners like plantings, we've talked about it. Not all life forms are gonna be respecting that, you know, so you're gonna wanna keep those out when you put in the new plantings. Switching to wetlands, I was fine with the delineation. If you recall, they just had to do some additional carrying out of the wetland areas so that they encompassed all of within the limits of the property. They did that, and that's fine. And then I guess Ken shared a drawing with me earlier in the day that he could speak to with respect to the water course determination and now where that appears on the plan and what that buffer is, but we seem to be consistent on that demarcation as well. So it appears, at least from the plan that they have submitted now, that none of the finished items are gonna end up in the wetlands buffer, so it seems like they could avoid a town of Newcastle wetlands permit. And that basically summarizes my comments.
Okay, great, thank you. Jeff, you had some comments.
Yes, board, thank you. So, yeah, we had about 20 comments. Most of them were minor comments that need to make changes to the plan. So there were a couple of intermediate, sort of impactful comments that we had. I'll just go over those. One of them is sort of delineating the impervious coverage over the new tributary areas of where the stormwater is falling. Biggest one though was really there was an increase. They showed an increase in post-construction runoff on one of their design points, so that's got to get kind of worked out. That may affect system design a little bit. Other than that, again, most of it was, you know, sort of an exercise really just to get everything buttoned up. So nothing I think that is insurmountable.
With the exception of those that you mentioned, these are also something that you could condition in a resolution?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Great. Okay. Comments from board members, questions?
I still mine.
I think just so we can do it publicly, we talked about the turning radii, trucks, et cetera. And my question was whether the radii were appropriate were with full parking. And I think you indicated, Jeff, that was okay.
The turning radiuses were fine. We did also have the question on frequency of pickups as well.
Refuse.
Yeah, refuse pickups. That may be something the board would ask for, an analysis of the waste generation and, storage and how frequently it gets picked up.
Right. Again, because it's in a residential area, this is really critical. Now, apparently, we were advised that back under former ownership, there was a complaint filed in '21 with regard to refuse and not being picked up, et cetera. So it's a sensitive issue, especially in the summertime. So whether or not you can work with your refuse collector and maybe twice a week, or maybe the answer is, more containers, whatever that is. I mean, there's a scientific solution to this. So it can be resolved, but it's something that probably should be looked at and discussed. It'll be something that we would probably condition. And
Well, it's okay, we'll go back and consult and propose a program.
right, exactly, yeah. And to the engineer's point, there are apparently equations out there, number of people who eat, and how much garbage you need, and how much garbage you give off, and whatever. Never knew this.
Learn something new.
Oh yeah, it's just great, it's just wonderful things we learn here. It's endless, yes, okay,
So we'll get back to you on that.
Yep.
Here.
Anyone else do anything at all? Okay. Will the grass area be the only area that you use for valet parking? Because those were the ones that were designated for the more narrow spots. So I guess those will just be designated for, okay, good, okay. All right, so we need, I guess, a few things from you folks.
Horticulture plan,
Yep,
refuse plan,
well, okay, if you want to
Maybe
dignify
not
it
a
with a
plan,
plan.
strategy.
Exactly.
Program.
clarification on Dennis 121-6.
Yep.
And the parking and the headlights.
Yes, and treatments on all the lighting treatments, yeah. So the board's preference with these things that we have to do, we have not a whole lot of time, not a whole lot of meetings between now and our break in August. Although I will say that we have in the past, for worthy applicants, scheduled special meetings even during our time off and to get things done. Those tend not to be public hearings, but we have done resolution meetings, et cetera. So if it gets to that point, we might be able to find that we're around, the staff is around, we might be able to do that. So the issue is we have some stuff to come in.
Sounds like we could get all that in, Ken, in a week,
Yeah.
a week or so? Certainly before the June 3rd meeting.
Well, technically the June 3rd information is already passed, right? For
Deadline is
submission.
passed for that.
But it's not, I mean, it's up to the staff really, because you guys have to review this and put it all together. So does it matter if we go, unfortunately, we're not meeting because of tax certiorari in the middle of June. So our first meeting in July is when?
July 1st.
July 1st?
And the submission deadline is June 9th.
So I think, Mr. Chairman, respectfully, I think it does matter for the construction to begin in early July. So our ask would be to have that public hearing June 3rd. We would still get the information to the board so that you see that you have it. If you could have a resolution ready that night.
July 3rd, June 3rd?
On June 3rd.
No, it's not gonna, that will not happen.
It's June 1st, isn't it?
No, July 1st.
July 1st.
July 1st is the next one Felicia said, but you're asking for June 3rd?
I thought June is the next
June
meeting.
3rd is 2 weeks.
June 3rd is the next meeting.
June 3rd
Yeah,
is
so that would be at a minimum public hearing is what we would like to at least
Right.
get the public hearing open and hopefully close that night. We expect to have overwhelming favorable support from the public that night. I think some of the items that we're talking about aren't necessarily things that the public would be commenting on. So I think we could submit that in a week or so, right, before June
But they
third.
could comment on trash and lighting.
They could.
And not only could they comment, but we haven't had a chance to see it, so there's no way we can put together a resolution. I mean,
So this, let me ask, then, in the spirit of then scheduling a special meeting, could we have a special meeting on the resolution then for
we
later
might,
in June?
if we can get together a quorum.
That would be great.
So we've done that in the past, so sometime maybe even, late June if we do this in June third. I mean, it's up to staff, you guys have to give me feedback in terms of whether or not, if you get stuff in a week, you're down to a weekend or so just to review the materials. And it gets to be very, very tight. So the issue is, you have to tell us, we'll try to work with you as much as we can here. But if we do it July 1 and have a resolution ready for you in a week or two, even from there at worst. We have 2 meetings in July, right?
We do. July 1st and the 15th.
Right.
That's then going, I think too far for the crisis. I think we would like to have the public hearing June third, and if everything is in order, depending upon the comments that night, come back middle to late June for a special meeting just on the resolution.
To start construction like July
Like
1.
July 1, even maybe sooner.
Before that?
Yeah. As Ken mentioned, it's all about shutting down the facility.
Yeah, you're shutting down for 2 months in the heart of the summer, that's a
Yeah.
big deal.
And there's employees who.
Right, and have you, where do you stand with your building permits?
Ken?
Building permits have been phased. Right now, we're about to submit the phase 3, which includes the work of the addition. I have had numerous discussions with Tom DePaul, so he's aware of exactly what's happening and all the phasing. He's working with us. Typically how it happens, I sit down with Tom in your conference room and we go through the entire plan review with him. And I show him all the code implications and everything. And then, usually takes him a little bit of time after that and he issues a permit. So we're very much on track for a building permit we'll get a building permit subject to a planning board resolution.
Right, and so on that, if you guys wanna get started, so I'm gonna require a pre-cut inspection, so if you could mark the trees that are going to be removed, not just the discs, I know that are on there. I'm gonna need the wetlands buffer survey located and, wood laid and staked in, so that we don't encroach beyond that.
Right.
And if you wanna set up your perimeter fencing in those areas, cause obviously if you look at the plans, things are a little close, not super close, but close. So that, it's doubly indicated, that would be fine too, and I can complete those inspections regardless of, what transpires if there's no changes in tree removal and there's no other wetlands found, which I'm not expecting. So that's just, if you wanna take advantage of
Sure, I appreciate that.
that loose time, whatever, and my wife wants me out of the house, so I'm here, so don't worry about it.
So if I may, I think I would ask the board, if you're willing to entertain another meeting in June, what is your schedule and your preferred date?
Well, I think before we do that, I think what we ought to do is get a sense of the board in terms of, and again, you guys, staff, about this June 3rd date. I think what we could do is schedule the public hearing for June 3rd, resolve for that. If for some reason the material's not in, you haven't had a chance to review it, we can always just then, postpone it till the next meeting in June. But I don't think we should be scheduling a special meeting in late June at this point where we don't even have a public hearing open or closed at this point. We can do that on June 3rd to see where we are and then figure out what we can do between staff and ourselves if we have availability. I suspect we would. But I think, does that sound fair to
Depends how far the Knicks advance, right?
What's that?
Depends how far the Knicks advance.
I could slow down review. So we can schedule this for a public hearing on June 3rd.
Take it from there.
And I guess what we have to ask you is, I don't have a calendar in front of me.
Did there used to be one up on the board?
There is one over there, but that's an eye test that I failed.
I mean, do we all, I know, the 17th was postponed because.
17th is a tax.
Right.
June, then there's Juneteenth and June 19th, so like Wednesday, June 18th.
I feel like there was a conflict with rooms.
Yeah, well, that was a real problem.
That was a problem.
So can you get this material in to town hall to staff by a week from today, the 27th?
Yeah.
Day after Memorial Day weekend.
Oh, yeah, remember, that's one of the problems we have.
Yeah, we have a couple days, yeah, we can.
Yeah, I mean, I don't do the photometrics, but I'll ask them to push.
The photometric is because it's not us.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Somebody else, but yeah, we'll certainly.
Had enough, I don't see that.
And sorry.
So everything with the photometric may come in a day or two after that?
Yeah.
And I'll just offer some assurance that a lot of the new lighting going in is gonna be essentially garden path lighting, and it's all 2700K, so it's warm, so it's, I can assure you there's no spillage going on to the neighbors, so that's a positive. But
27 is a good number.
Yeah, that's what we look for.
But we need to see it, obviously, you wanna see it on the paper, so I understand that, but I can assure you it's not.
No, the 27th, again, this is up to you, Jeff and Dennis and Sabrina. If you go one extra day, the 28th, because the 27th is the day after the holiday, it's a long weekend. That's giving them a little bit more time, but giving less
That's a
time.
zoning board meeting.
No, just, Sabrina, that's just for our submission date.
For submission.
Oh.
So that gives.
Yeah, I think the sooner you can get it in, the better. I think Felicia will have to do a general notice for the public hearing.
Friday's my deadline for that, so I can get that in.
So we can notice it, we'll notice it for the 3rd, and you have to have everything in by the 28th.
Okay.
So it gives you another extra day after the holiday.
We'll let you know for whatever reason the photometric plan, but everything within our control, certainly.
Right.
I may end up calling Felicia that the photometric plan, we'll find out tomorrow, right, Jeff, the timing of the photometric plan.
Right. And then Dennis, when do they have to get those things that you need for the trees, et cetera, the tags? Is that something that has to be done at this point as well?
Those will be required prior to issuance of the building permit, so that's
Okay,
why
so-
I'm
oh, that's-
mentioning.
okay.
Yeah,
That's just to help us
that's a
get
typical.
in anticipation of getting an approval, hopefully let's say third week in June.
Okay. So is there a motion then to move this to a public hearing on June 3rd?
Motion?
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay.
How's the weekend? We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Alright.
Thanks very much.
Guys.
Thank you.
See me on Wednesday.
Happy New Year.
Thank you, everybody.
Night.
Go next.
A lot of advertising around here. Second time they came here without this.
I know, we gotta mention it to Brad.
It's getting ugly now. Okay, we move now to our next item. This is an informal hearing for CG Homes LLC, 456 and 462 Armonk Road. This is an application for a preliminary subdivision plat approval, application for a stormwater management and erosion and sedimentation control, and tree removal permit for construction of a 4-lot subdivision. Oh, you're online, Ralph.
You guys hear me?
Yep. Gotcha.
So if I can, I'll share my plans.
Thank you, yes.
Got it up on your screen?
Got it.
Okay, so, for the record, Ralph Alzetti, the engineer for the project, so last time we were at the, in front of the planning board, we were speaking about site distance and an 85th percentile, speed on Almont Road. So we did an 85 percentile speed analysis, and we got 49 and 48 miles per hour as our 85th percentile speed. So we used 50 as our design speed in looking at our site distance. That resulted in moving our entrance off of Almont Road from approximately this location where my cursor is to the location as it's shown. I can go through the site distance plan if you like. On top of that, I believe the town engineer requested us to do additional testing for the stormwater with town personnel witnessing. We did testing for our new septic locations with Westchester County Department of Health. We did testing for the stormwater with New York City DEP personnel and town staff. We've done D-test holes and perk tests in all those locations. I saw the comments from the consultants. I did not see anything in there that was earth shattering. I know we do not have a landscaping plan yet. We anticipate to fully comply with the town code as far as landscaping and tree removal mitigation. Here to move this along and hopefully schedule a public hearing.
Okay. Sabrina, you had some comments?
I did, Mr. Chairman, just real quickly. I think that the applicant has addressed many of my comments. The zoning conformance table is compliant at present with the R1/2 acre setback requirements. The action is an unlisted action. Your board circulated a notice of intent. It has, there was no objection to that, so you are the lead agent. The New York City DEP did suggest changes to the EAF form, and specifically indicated that they are awaiting an application to DEP. So that should be, the reference to the DEP application being submitted in March 2025 should be stricken from the EAF. So those two changes should be made. The DEP also submitted comments on the SWIP. And there is a question about a water course, which I believe Dennis will be speaking about. The biggest issue for me is the coverage calculation of worksheets. I don't think that the coverage calculation, particularly the development coverage, was formulated correctly, and I did provide for the applicant kind of a different methodology to employ to figure that out. Ralph, hopefully you got it.
I did. I think we had it right the first time, and then we moved the entrance and something got jumbled.
Yeah, I get it. But just if you can correct that, that would be very good, so I can confirm the development coverage. They did provide a split rail fence to demarcate the wetland boundary, the buffer. And I think that's it. The rest of the comments belong to other members of my team. So I don't think that I would have any objection, if the planning board wanted to schedule a public hearing.
Okay, very good, thanks.
Can I ask a question on Sabrina's number 6?
Sure.
So Sabrina, on question 6, you asked about
Yes.
the stormwater in the basin. Are you referring to the basin in lot 1?
Yes.
So this is a question for the applicant. What happens with lot 1 after the 4 houses are built and the 4 houses are sold? Is lot 1 still owned by the applicant, and is the applicant responsible for taking care of it? Or has this become an HOA and these 4 homeowners are responsible for lot 1?
And each way, these 4 homeowners are responsible for it.
So it's an HOA and the homeowners will do it?
Yes, just as they'd be responsible for the entrance off of Route 128 on Monk Road.
So insurance on that piece of property, in case somebody trespasses and gets hurt, it's covered by those 4 homeowners?
Correct.
Okay. And then I guess then, did they have use of the property to go do stuff on it if they wanted to?
I don't think that's the intent here, and Sabrina, you can correct me, but this is a conservation subdivision, so I believe we have to set aside a certain area for essentially conservation easement. So that lot is serving that purpose.
Correct.
So does
Right, and the reason I raised this in my memo is that as an MS4, the town is responsible for ensuring that private stormwater facilities are maintained. And so, we are kind of changing our protocols and our requirements to ensure that when a project is approved, that they are, that they're aware of the responsibility of maintaining their stormwater infrastructure. And most importantly, that the new homeowners understand that they have a responsibility to maintain that stormwater infrastructure.
And let me say one thing here, Greg, we've always done this for the past 20 years.
Yep.
That we've always had very extensive, comprehensive stormwater maintenance inspection protocol on every major subdivision that I've looked at. Ever since I've been here for 32 years, Frank was big on it. The only thing we gotta do is Jeff and I have to modify those things along with town council to make certain that it implements the new heightened restrictions that are brought on by the new MS4 regulations that the state is requiring and mandating the towns to do. But we've always had very comprehensive agreements which we can use as a base and a guide, and just to work on that as a guide to implement the ones for MS4. So we've always had it. It'll just be a little bit more rigorous to satisfy and be in compliance with the new DEC standards.
I just, my thing is to make sure the homeowners know that this is their responsibility.
Well, it's very interesting because one of the conversation, in the conversation we had earlier today with Bob and Jeff, they were talking in terms of not only notice, but perhaps we actually require a little bit of an escrow set aside so that we have some level of assurance that maintenance will in fact take place. Because it's a little bit more difficult, you can sit there and enforce it, but then you have, 4 homeowners, one's not participating, doesn't wanna participate, and all that kind of stuff that goes on from time to time. So Jeff had this idea that perhaps we could start to fold into that agreement some sort of arrangement whereby there's some sort of escrow money set aside. I don't know by whom, I guess the sponsor, the applicant, that would be held, and then of course, each new homeowner would be aware of the agreement and aware of this escrow that's set aside. So I guess you've seen this in other places, Jeff?
Yes, one of the bigger, one of the larger requirements that New York State has burdened on the town is ensuring maintenance of stormwater systems, so stormwater management practices. Meaning in this case, we have a retention pond, that requires maintenance over a certain time period over its lifetime, and it entails inspections, it entails ultimately, cutting, removing of vegetation and possibly dredging. So we may.
Does the state go to you to enforce that, or does the state contact these 4 homeowners directly?
They require the town to enforce these now, which they never had in the past. It was always on the homeowner. But now the town is required to make sure that the maintenance is done. It's the onus is on us. So having at least being able to having some sort of cost estimate for maintenance and a maintenance plan for any stormwater management practices that are installed. It's probably what we're gonna be doing in the future. And again, somebody has to be responsible for this, so whether, we have some sort of management, somebody has to manage the HOA that's going to manage the stormwater practice, so figuring out a sort of a foundation for how we lay that out is probably what we'll be doing.
As a matter of fact, to Jeff's point, Greg, the town planning board has always put conditions in there which require the applicant to set up the HOA and make sure they get it approved and then a brand new one. But I think we have to go one step further to now really act as the HOA before it's turned over and collect the money, to Jeff's point, and then transfer it to the HOA. But the most important thing is to make sure the HOA is functioning prior to the release of that money. So those are all conditions of approval that are put in the resolutions.
And I bring this up because there's something that happened to a friend of mine recently where they purchased a home and didn't realize that they had responsibilities with New York State to maintain a certain portion of their property, and now they're scratching their head going, and I don't know if the seller ever shared that information. So fast forward 10, 15 years, are these sellers, I don't know if there's anything we could do to protect the town, or if it's
If I
just.
can jump in, typically it's a maintenance agreement that's filed with county land records. So anyone that would pull title on the property would see
We
it.
find it, okay.
That's what I believe how it works.
Yeah, that's what we
Then the
do.
buyer,
We do maintenance.
so then the buyer knows, once they do a title cert, that it's there, okay.
Correct.
And all of these agreements that we're speaking of, the sightline easements, the comprehensive drainage inspection, maintenance agreements, and the common driveway utility easement, all these are reviewed in conjunction with the town engineer, town council, and they're always filed with Westchester County and approved by the town board. We've done that on every major subdivision ever since I've been here to Ralph's point. So there will be on file, you can find it if you go on the county land records. They'll have a control number, they'll have a declaration page, they'll be picked up when you do the title search. So those are all the measures that we try to do to make certain that new homeowners do not get blindsided by these additional costs.
Thank you.
Okay. Bob, you had some comments, right?
Yes, I'm just gonna go over the major comments. I'll start with number one. Did a great job on the intersection site distance by Tim Miller, did a fantastic job, very conservative, used 50 mph. I just wanna let everyone know that there will have to be sightline easement agreements along each and every one of those lots, which will again be recorded against each lot owner. And there'll have to be specific easements to make certain that those lines are cleared all the time in perpetuity. So that is critical, and that will all have to be shown and delineated with the meets and bounds on the subdivision map as well. Number two, deep test holes, I know Ralph, you just mentioned it in your intro. All of these deep test holes and perk rates, we haven't received any data from the county. Are you telling me that they went out to look at it and they did approve it, just for clarification?
Well, they witnessed all the testing. They're not gonna approve it until I submit to them the final plans. So, yes, they're not gonna approve it until we're final there. But
Okay, but it met all the requirements as far as the minimum depth.
Yes, everything that's as far as depth and perk rates were all okay, so yes.
Well, just respond, just make a quick blurb like that, so if the county was satisfied with depth, to the groundwater and bedrock and met all the criteria, just let us know that so the planning board realizes that.
And you did see the data, correct, Bob? It was on.
Yes, I did, yes, I did, and this little punch sheet I gave you with like 6 items, I mean, generally, as you know,
That's on the chart.
right here, all these, this is gonna be a table on the subdivision map. Obviously with this file, so we can see the decibel data, the soil flow rates, bedroom absorption fields, so that's all gonna be on the table. I think it'd be a good idea, Ralph, to show it on the site plans too as well. So, number three, provided maintenance access, I don't believe the access complies with section 6.3 Ralph, because if you read it, it's gotta extend all the way over to the overflow on the west-hand side, which is gonna be going up the whole west side, that's a 12-foot wide minimum. So I believe that may impact the wetlands, where you may have to move it further east. So that's 3, 1, and 2, so I would definitely take a look at that.
Yep, we can advise that we're not gonna impact wetlands, we will widen our berm and they can use the berm as a maintenance access to go around the entire pond.
Okay, and again, that will be all included in this is a title from the previous agreement. Stormwater management facilities, and it just mentions all the types of SMPs that are maintained, construction maintenance inspection agreement, to Greg's point, Jeff's point, so that'll be something that will be looked at quite carefully. That was number 3. I'm gonna be going down to number 6 now. This is easements for the common driveway. Obviously, the genesis of these easements, Ralph, will be the easement width. When I was looking at drain line, I believe B, which is on the west side of the site, it appears to me, Ralph, that the drainage easements are generally 15 to 20 feet wide. I don't think it's gonna be a good idea to have the easements encroach onto a pool patio or go into the wetlands. So you might wanna rethink that because the easement's gotta be at least, these are not town easements be minimum of 20 feet based on what the commissioner likes to see. Maybe you can tweak out 10 feet, but even 10 feet, you're gonna encroach onto the patio deck and you encroach into the wetlands. I don't think that's a way to go. I'm gonna defer to the planning board on what you wanna see them do here, either reduce the patio deck or just have it go with wetlands and bite the bullet, I don't know.
I'm gonna jump in.
I don't know what your thoughts are, Ralph.
I'm gonna jump in and then reduce the patio deck and just move move that manhole a little bit further away from the wetland buffer line. This way.
Right, it's gonna make that, I would think that easement's gotta be at least 10 feet.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so that's that one, and then I'm gonna drop on down to NPT, I just put in a swell factor there, 1.3, I did a real quick down and dirty calculation on the fill. It looks to me it's gonna be similar amount of truck traffic that we have on 90 Inwood, you're looking at 230 to 280. You're looking at 500 trucks going in and out, obviously, make a long story short, you have to get a maintenance MPT plan out there, just to make certain people are alerted that trucks will be entering on that road during construction. So that's MPT, MPT two, and then we jump on down to.
Bob, 1 second.
Yes, sir.
On the cut and fill summary, do your figures include the pools?
Excuse me?
Do your figures include the pools, the swimming pools?
On the cut and fill analysis.
That's a question for Ralph. Do they?
I have to double check. I don't think they do.
I don't think so either. We don't have any information about depth or anything else, so I don't know how we could possibly include it.
Yep, I will double check that, update that number. There's also some areas that we did not count as far as fill. As for example, some of the septic systems that we're filling, we did not count. And a lot of this on the site is usable for septic fill, so that number of 3,000 or even 4,000 cubic yards is probably inflated, but I will revise the number, include pools. I will make an assumption of a 4-foot deep pool and a 6-foot deep section of the pool and revise that number and also update it with the septic areas. So I think that number of 3,000, 4,000 is gonna actually be lower, it's gonna come down.
Okay, that's good news.
Yeah.
Jumping down to GC one, common access drive and the common driveway. Generally, please note that I think the common driveway should at least be 18-foot wide with 2-foot shoulders. Right now, you're just showing, I think, 16 and 2 and 2, so you got 20 there. I guess the 20 is okay if you want to keep the 16 and 2 and 2, so you do have the 20. I'm just thinking in terms of what the building inspector likes to see and what the fire chief likes to see. Generally minimum of 20 watts, but GC2, we had to do this up on East Village, Toll Brothers, the ladder truck, the outriggers go out 24 feet. So therefore you need structural support going 24 feet out. And it's gotta be H25 loading, and the outriggers, maximum loading is 75 PSI, which is 10,008. So you're gonna have to do some sort of report on that. Ralph, we do have some samples I can give you that they did out there in East Village. I think it'll be helpful, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. But we do need that demonstrated and site-specific engineers report on that. So, if you need that report that they did up there in East Village, I'll be more than happy to share it with you.
Okay, that'd be great.
GC7, obviously, maybe it's premature, but I guess ultimately you submit a preliminary subdivision map done by a surveyor. Keep in mind, this subdivision map will have to show all those easements and the meets and bounds for the common driveway, for the drainage easements, for the sidelines, because that's gonna be the genesis of all the meets and bounds and all the agreements, so that will be critical, that will need to be looked at and reviewed as well. GC10 just show a really good detail of the infiltration basis site specific, I like the generic ones out of the DEC manual, they're great for guidance, but I like to see the nuts and bolts. GC 14, for some reason they set a line distance, so historically I've always seen it go from center to structure. Just forget about this length of the structure itself, it just makes it easier to compute. GC 1718, get down to the maintenance agreements, Ralph, you were talking about before. In this particular project, you're gonna need performance bond for the plantings, performance bond for the civil site, performance bond for all of the stormwater. Those are the three main items you're gonna need. GC 19, you'll have to do an estimate on that, give it to me in Word, in Excel, so it's easy, we usually do adjust them a little bit. This is going on for 2 years, we usually adjust these costs 2 years out, because the construction is usually a 2-year timeline. So we'll go from 24, 25 to 26. That's GC 19. You gotta pay a 3% inspection fee, GC 20. And those are my main comments for tonight, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, good, thank you, Bob. GC 24, you might wanna update to Dennis as opposed to Steve Coleman for the inspection.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. That's what happens when you cut and paste too fast.
No problem.
Thank you.
Good. Dennis, you have some comments?
Sure, and I'll try to help with the clarification on the DEP letter, because it was a little convoluted to me. With respect to my memo, the beginning is just repeats for the general comments. Again, with respect to the wetlands buffer, I know you could probably approach the work as minimal as possible if you were interested in removing the shed, but obviously we would just want some type of restoration, so the only way to capture all that would be, to apply for a wetlands permit for the demolition / removal and just, how you would look to restore the area. And then, I figured, I know that they've appeared a fair number of times before the board, so I just took the liberty of just sort of, calculating what we're talking about. Again, preliminary, I've only been, to the site once, haven't, verified, some of these trees may have fallen, some of the measurements may not be right, etc. But I calculate they're in the neighborhood of 274 replaced trees required. So that number had never been thrown out, so I figured it was just worthwhile to throw it out there. And, that needs to be considered going forward. That would summarize my memo. With respect to the DEP letter, the last item Ms. Garcia is referring to, so they're acknowledging the GIS depictions of the water course in the wetlands. And I know obviously on the plans, Paul Janning had completed the wetlands delineation, and I, as Newcastle regulatory authority, accepted that delineation is, yes, that accurately depicts the limits of wetlands. And so that's what you put on the EAF form with respect to the acreage of wetlands on site. However, her last statement about the Army Corps of Engineers, so I'm taking this to mean that in order for DEP to accept your depiction of the wetlands, you're gonna have to apply for a jurisdictional determination from the Corps. And if they concur that the limits and extent of the wetlands are as depicted, then you're gonna receive that letter that's usually good for 5 years. And I guess that becomes the documentation or the acknowledgement that confirms what she's referring to with respect to the GIS aerial images. As far as the EAF, that would also then confirm that you're not encroaching into any wetlands or regulated buffers, because even from DEC's perspective, it would only be 100 feet. Since this is the Environmental Protection Overlay District, that's why, you're in the 150 feet territory. So really, getting that jurisdictional determination, you could do it for both agencies. Honestly, you probably should, now that DEC has changed the rules for 2025. it would be, in my opinion, just a one-time thing to sort of get it done, and then you would have confirmation from both agencies that regulate wetlands that our project is certainly not within wetlands. The Corps doesn't care about buffers, but the DEC would, and you would say, well, we're obviously outside of your 100-foot buffer because we're outside of the 150-foot buffer from Newcastle. So, again, I'm not DEP, but until you do that, to me, this letter would stay sort of floating there and unclarified with respect to that last comment. So that's my interpretation. I didn't speak to them directly, but that's how we used to do it when we would do wetland delineations. We would get the JDs this way. We knew that the agencies agreed with us, and then what appeared on the plans was obviously consistent with what they agreed was the wetlands. And those are my comments.
Great. Okay, thank you. Ralph, I had a question for you. I think at one earlier meeting you indicated that, the pools are gonna be part of the application. It seems to me that the pools, as currently located, fall within what look to be steep slopes. At least on one of these lots, it seems like it's very steep. Have you looked at that? Do we need a steep slope application for the pools? I mean, with what they're proposing here? It seems to me that we should be looking at that since the pools are now gonna be part of the application. What I would hate is to have, this is what happens sometimes. Future buyers see these boxes and then see a pool box and just say, it's all approved, I can get this. And then when they walk at the staff and they find out that no, it's not, then we have a big hullabaloo over it's already approved, it's not approved. So as long as you're going to be including the pools as part of the application, in addition to the cut and fill, I think we should really get some sort of information about the steep slopes, the impacts, what those slopes are out there. Are they 15, are they 25, are they 35? And the location of the pools and what we plan to do in terms of grading and filling and impacting these slopes. It's not just an empty exercise because in this particular case, echoing what Dennis said, this is part of the environmental overlay area. And one of the reasons it falls within that area is that we have steep slopes that are adjacent to and contiguous to wetlands. And those are the wetlands that are most susceptible to damage with any kind of activity on the slopes. So I'm sure there will be all kinds of solutions to remedy the situation, but I think we need that information. So I think at a minimum, we need to see a steep slope application along with a wetland application that Dennis is requesting.
What was the second one? I'm sorry, the steep slope application, what was the second one?
Wetland application.
For the shed?
Yeah. Shed.
Okay.
Also too, Mr. Chairman, I kind of forgot to mention one of my items, is it okay to say that now?
Sure.
MP2 too, I'm just a little concerned with the extent of grading around that's gonna be required to put in the drainage. So in MP2, I'd like to see some sort of section cut through more particular in lot 2, demonstrating that there's gonna be no grading into the 150 wetlands buffer, so at least show a few sections on those, because there's a pretty good amount of cut on some of those, and I think right about 20 foot east of the pool area on lot 2, you get about a 17-foot cut, and it's very close to the buffer, so please show that to see how exactly your proposed grading meet, and there will be no impacts based on the grading over the 150-foot buffer line, so that's critical right there.
Okay,
Thank you,
yeah,
Mr. Chairman.
I believe you're talking about this area here, and the way this is.
That is correct.
This area here, where my cursor is really flat.
Actually, to the right,
Here?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, this is, so again, this is, where my cursor is right now, it's flat. It goes up a very, very steep hill to a ridge, and then it goes back down. These existing contour lines that are kind of behind or underneath my proposed grading in the pool, those are very, very close together, which indicates a very steep slope. That slope appears to be man-made. I believe they were kind of digging this out over the years. And if you look at this out in the field, it just looks like it's a man-made slope, because it just looks like it was being quote unquote mined, I'll say. So it kind of just, you know, this is really steep slope up to this ridge right here and then starts going down gently. So it's almost like we're just kind of smoothing it out. It actually it makes it less erosive, I'll call it, just because right now it's extremely steep, but it's a man-made slope. It's not like a rocky slope that was occurring in it.
I agree with it, but just for clarity purposes and.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll do that.
Just do the sections by the pool, especially on those two lots 3 and 4.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else, any questions?
I just have a question of curiosity.
Sure.
Ralph, when you got the report back from Tim Miller and they located the driveway, how close was it located to the original driveway that was there, the existing one?
To the old house?
To the old house, yeah.
Well, the old house is in this area.
So that, wasn't there like a driveway with 2 pillars, stone pillars?
Yes, there is a driveway with 2 stone pillars. It is approximately right about here.
Okay. It's
very close. It's not far from where it was, and there's probably a very good reason for that, right?
They probably figured out the best spot to pull out.
Right, they looked at it in the past and they said, this is a good spot, you can see far and let's put it there, so.
Okay.
Great. All right. So if we can get this, do we feel as though we're there? Do we have enough information to schedule this for a public hearing? Do we wanna see it more with more information to fill in some of the spots that we have here, some of the gaps? It seems to me that we need the wetland and steep slope applications first because those technically require a public hearing anyway. So it seems to me that we should get those first and then we can move there and get to the public and get this going. Does that make sense? Okay. So we'll hold it open for Ralph for another informal, so if you can get that information to us. Maybe if you get it to us soon, we can get you for the July meeting, the second July meeting.
Yeah, I mean, is there any way, or would the board entertain scheduling a public hearing and then keeping it open, and I can give you this information? You don't have to close it.
I don't think we have a administrative issue with it. The only issue I have is really that it's weird to schedule a public hearing before we actually have the application.
It's administratively incomplete.
Okay, and we can just, I'll get it to you as soon as I can.
Yeah, as soon as you can, and then what's the second meeting in July?
July 15th, and the deadline for submission is June 30th for that.
Can you make July 1?
July 1st deadline is June 9th.
You wanna try that, Ralph?
I can make that, June 9th deadline, yes.
Good, let's do that. Super, okay.
Move these two along.
Yep, good, we'll see you then.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, have a good night.
Yep.
Thank you, Ralph.
Okay, our last item now, the application for Racine Reamer is has been withdrawn by the applicant. We have just minutes of May 6th, 2025. Any issues, questions, changes?
I had no changes.
I have one little
You have a,
one little which I'll just give to you. Anyone, anything?
No, I was good.
If not, is there a motion to adopt the minutes of May 6th? Motion. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And that's it. Is there a motion to close the hearing, the meeting?
We have one question, yeah, I was
Yes.
gonna ask the same thing.
Well, that was really in connection with the Kittle House.
Oh, okay.
So that was just to give you an idea of roads throughout the town that have limitations already built into them for truck traffic.
Gotcha, okay.
And Annandale was one that came up, so it's already there. It already exists as a limitation. So no need to be redundant.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
I don't know if everybody is aware, but I got notification late this afternoon that Rose Noonan, who was the president of the Housing Action Council, had passed away due to a long battle with cancer. And I know that she was involved in almost every affordable housing project that Newcastle has been involved in, as well as working with the Pace Land Youth Law Center and their affordable.
Okay, thank you. Sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
Okay, again, is there a motion to close the meeting? A motion. Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay.
Good night, all.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Yep,
Good night.
good night.
So, my neighbor, so we have our HOA meeting, we're off mic, right?
Yes.
So we have our HO meeting 2 Thursdays ago. And the big top, and these new residents, at the first meeting, and the big topic